very early on in this podcast, you say that, right now you are, the word I use is semi-retired. Okay. Do correct me if the word I use is not right. But basically, the way I look at it is now you're running your own business. If I'm not wrong, you work maybe 2 to 3 days a week. The rest of the time, you are taking care of your kids, spending time with your family, learning Dutch probably. Yeah. And I remember on LinkedIn, you have this article which basically states that you are semi-retired at 40. So in a sense, you reach this, what we call financial freedom, where today, even if you don't have a job, it's not something you have to worry. You don't have to worry that you can't eat. You don't have to worry that you don't have a place to stay. So you kind of reach this place where not just salespeople, but a lot of people want to be at this stage, semi-retired stage at your age. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, how do you do it? What got you to where you are today?
I mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad already, right? The other book that also greatly shaped my financial quotient is Millionaire Next Door. And I would say this book is a lot more important than Rich Dad Poor Dad because it's about controlling the cost. Because I already written 2 articles on this topic, so if I would just summarize it briefly, how I did it, I didn't spend everything I earned on the things that I feel not necessary. Like, for example, I have colleagues who will buy a Chanel bag if they reach their quota, or buy the very Jimmy Choo shoes. And then there's nothing wrong about that. These are all my good friends, and they earn the money and they choose how they spend it. It's all great. But for me, myself, those things didn't really bring much pleasure to me in the first place. And second is I knew that I didn't want to work my entire life. I was very much inspired by the Rich Dad Poor Dad because it tells me a roadmap, like what you do so that you don't have to work until you are 50 or 60s. Or let me put it the other way. I could choose to work on the things I want to work for as long as I want. And I do not have to be put in a job and people will say, oh, you are too old, or, you can't do this job, basically. So I earned a good salary, like we already said, and I save as much as possible. I think I shared in the post my cost of living in 2007, 2008 was something like 2,000 per month. And that is with my husband, at that time, my boyfriend. So, but we were both earning like a starter salary, like 3,000 per month. So together we can earn 6,000 and we will save the 4,000 aside. And that's kind of the extent of how we got our first bucket of gold, if you name it that way. And it also helped greatly that Singapore is not a heavily taxed country. I mean, besides what we have to pay to CPF, I mean, if I was starting my career in Netherlands, then 40 to 50% of my salary will go to the pension fund. So then I couldn't save as much cash on hand. Yeah. So that's another thing I didn't realize until I came to Netherlands. And I would say that it's really just have the cadence, the discipline to really control your spending. And after you got the money, what we did was we first actually invested in our first company. And it was registered in Singapore in 2008. Because my life plan actually has my husband also in it. Yeah, actually, I have to mention that you call me semi-retired, right? But my husband is actually the one that's also semi-retired, but he's the one that bringing all the money for running the household now. So I could have the freedom, to not worry about this aspect. But very early on, I introduced Rich Dad Poor Dad to him, and we both read in 2004. And then the plan was I will work in corporate first while he built up the company. And when the company take off, I could also kind of semi-retire from the corporate world. And that's pretty much what we have achieved by now. And
Wow.
so my second part of the success story is it does help if you have a partner to do this, help you together, because then you kind of have a safety line, right? One of you is in the entrepreneurship path, but the other one is still in the corporate world. So kind of buffer the risk a little bit. And and I think the third thing I would say is we really share a very similar financial view on things. So I'm not a big spender. He is not. And when we spend, we make plan budgeting. And if you do not really know how to do budgeting, I will recommend you to hear another podcast, which I will send you the link. And that is an entrepreneur who actually turned his business of using Excel to do his own home budget into an app that help just average common people to budget their household. And he is also very much a follower of Millionaire Next Door. So, there is, it's not just me. All I want to say is it's not just me. I'm just very ordinary, very common. And I actually didn't inherit anything from my parents. Everything I earn is myself, but it's just, I know the book, I follow what they say, and I started early, and that's all.